Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a time when Mondays weren't just bad, they were a one-way ticket to backbreaking labour under the scorching Egyptian sun. You think traffic is bad? Try being shoved into a human cattle line at 400 m by a man with a whip and a really aggressive mullet. Forget your email inbox. Your job involves hauling 2-ton blocks up a makeshift ramp with nothing but rope, sand, and your slowly dissolving will to live. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with your location and local time. It's always wild to see who's listening from where. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up face down in a bed that's less memory foam and more ancient gravel pit. You don't remember falling asleep here, but that's probably because your body gave up consciousness out of sheer protest. Above you, the desert sky is still dark, just a hint of dawn teasing the horizon. You hear it before you see it along. Drawn out honk, not the romantic kind, not even the kind from an irritated goose. No, this one's more primal, your camp's designated morning call. A goose that sounds like it smokes 3 packs a day and hates joy. You sit up or try to. Your back cracks like a cartwheel over cobblestones, and your knees pop in stereo. Every muscle is a protester in the great uprising of regret. You slept on a straw mat so thin it could pass as a napkin, next to a guy who snored in hieroglyphs and a goat that might have peed on your foot. Again, the camp is already stirring. Figures wrapped in linen shift through the gloom, muttering curses in various dialects and languages. You're one of several hundred slaves, labourers, volunteers who've been shipped here to work on Pharaoh's latest architectural ego trip. You'd complain. But the last guy who said something sarcastic about the pyramid just being compensatory now works in the vulture feeding department. No one knows what that means. No one asks. Breakfast arrives in a bucket, literally. It's a bucket filled with something vaguely bread-like, an onion or two, and what might have once been lentils before they lost the will to be legumes. You grab a chunk and chew carefully, because last week you chipped a tooth on what turned out to be a petrified chickpea. The water served lukewarm in a shared jug that smells like it's having an existential crisis. Still, you gulp it down. Hydration is a rare luxury right after hope and spare sandals. Your uniform consists of a linen loincloth and whatever sunburn you earned yesterday. You strap on your sandals, if you're lucky enough to have them otherwise. It's barefoot in the desert, a real treat for anyone who enjoys the feeling of walking on an open griddle as the sun begins its brutal climb. You shuffle with the others to the staging area. Your team, affectionately known as the Boulder Boys, is responsible for transporting stone blocks from the quarry to the base of the pyramid. The blocks are about the size of a modern SUV, but significantly less comfortable. You get your assignment, block 117. It's not glamorous, but it's less cursed than block 116, which cracked last week and crushed a guy named Hapu, rest in compressed pieces. The overseer, a tall man with sun-leathered skin, a perpetual scowl, and a whip that he treats like a fidget toy, blows his horn. Not metaphorically. He actually has a horn made of ram's bone that he uses to direct traffic and or summon fear. Move, dogs, he shouts, because morning pep talks weren't a thing yet. You and your crew brace your shoulders against the thick ropes looped around the base of the stone. You're using a combination of brute strength, bad leverage, and what can only be described as wishful heaving. The sled groans. You groan louder. The block inches forward. Each movement a small victory against physics and your spinal column. As the sun climbs higher, the sand begins to radiate, heat like a grudge. You sweat through your linen, your body glistening in the sunlight like a human glazed donut. The pyramid looms in the distance, its silhouette jagged and unfinished. That's your goal, that's your nightmare, that's your Tuesday. Every so often, you pass a shrine with incense burning and a statue of the pharaoh grinning with the smug satisfaction of someone who definitely isn't here hauling stones. Offerings of bread and beer sit in small bowls. You glance at them longingly, then trip over a loose pebble and nearly face-plant into someone's prayer. You finally reach the base after what feels like several small eternities. You're greeted by another overseer who points with a stick and grunts, indicating where the block needs to go. The ramp is steep, slick with grease, and has more foot traffic than a modern mall on Black Friday. Your team begins the process of dragging the block upward, step by agonizing step. By the time you wedge the block into place, the sun is directly overhead. The sky is blinding white, and your armpits have developed their own microclimate. You collapse onto the sand, wheezing like a broken flute, and savour the sweet relief of not moving for 60 seconds. A supervisor walks by. He nods, then casually mentions that someone's goat has gone missing and might have wandered into the grain supplies again. You mentally prepare for goat-based punishment later. Historians still argue whether the labour force that built the pyramids were slaves in the traditional sense, or more like indentured workers, perhaps even conscripted citizens. But one thing's certain, none of them had dental. And nobody got a company mug that said one brick hauler, eventually. The overseer yells again, and the next round of hauling begins. You sigh, only 300 more blocks to go. And just like that, it's back to the quarry because this pyramid isn't going to build itself. And apparently, Pharaoh thinks you don't have better plans for the next 20 years. But hey, at least you didn't draw the night shift. Oh wait, that's next. You'd think after dragging half a mountain across the Sahara, someone would offer you a nap or maybe a small parade. Instead, your reward is a second breakfast of heat stroke and humility. You stumble back to camp around midday. Not because you're done, but because it's time to refuel. If that sounds like a euphemism for chew something vaguely edible and try not to cry, congratulations, you're catching on fast. Lunch is served on a slab of broken pottery, which doubles as your plate, your pillow, and possibly your only friend. The menu hasn't changed in weeks. More bread, more onions, and a side of please don't be beetles. Your meal arrives in a communal bucket, and by the time it gets to you, it's mostly juices and regret. You grab a chunk of bread, so dense it could anchor a ship, and take a bite that chips your molar and your spirit. The onion's the highlight. It has a crunch, a tang, and the ability to repel flies and friends alike. You eat it whole like an apple, tears streaming down your face, not from emotion, but from the raw chemical warfare happening in your sinuses. Nearby, someone's trying to rehydrate with water from a cracked jug that smells suspiciously like pickled camel. Still, it's that or dehydration, which in ancient Egypt is just a long nap with funeral options. You sit in partial shade, a generous term for a spot near a half-dead shrub, and try not to melt. Your tunic is now a sweat rag clinging to your back like betrayal. Your skin stings from the sun, your lips are cracking, and your thoughts are floating somewhere between, is this a dream, and can pyramids be cancelled? Conversation picks up around the camp. Someone swears they saw a cat walk upright and disappear behind a column. Another guy claims the pharaoh sneezed during a ceremony, and everyone had to cheer. You're too tired to question it. Ancient gossip is the only entertainment, and besides, hallucinating wildlife is just your brain's way of saying, have you considered passing out? Despite the misery, mealtime is when your fellow labourers come alive. There's Hekau, who thinks he's cursed because a scarab beetle landed on him twice in 1 week. There's Nenny, the only guy who can whistle using just his nose and a papyrus leaf. And then there's you, chewing your bread like it owes you money, wondering how you got here. Historians still argue whether pyramid labourers were given regular meals, or if it was more of a when we remember to feed you situation. Archaeological evidence suggests a reasonably structured diet: grains, legumes and some vegetables, occasionally even fish, but for you it's mostly dry bread and wild speculation. A rumour spreads that someone found a fig pit in the work camp trash heap. A fig. The crowd murmurs. Could it be real? Where did it come from? Did someone smuggle it in? Is there a black market for fruit? You don't care. You'd fight a jackal for a grape at this point. You take a moment to lean back, close your eyes, and wonder what your ancestors will think. Maybe they'll imagine you sipping wine in a linen robe, sketching hieroglyphs under a palm tree. Joke's on them, you're mostly just dehydrated, dusty, and using your chisel as a headrest. Then, just as you start imagining what shade must feel like, the overseer returns. He doesn't need to say anything. His shadow alone is enough to send everyone scrambling. Lunch is over, back to work. The walk to the site feels longer now. Your limbs are slow, your thoughts scattered. Your body aches in strange places. Like your left earlobe and your third toe, it's as if gravity is working extra hours to make sure you stay humble. As you walk, you pass the kitchen, which is really just a covered fire pit where half-burnt vegetables go to die. A cloud of smoke wafts out, and someone inside yells something about bonus beans, which might be a euphemism or an actual miracle. You also pass a goat. The goat stares at you. You stare back. The goat looks disappointed. You arrive at the next quarry lot just in time for round 2. This time. Your job is moving debris from the unfinished ramp. Your tool is a basket made of woven reeds and sheer optimism. You fill it with broken rock pieces and shuffle up and down the slope, which somehow feels steeper now that your soul has left your body. Every so often, someone slips. The work site is like an ancient reality show. No prize money, just injury. A worker ahead of you yelps and falls face first into a pile of sand. No one stops. The overseer shrugs and hands the guy a stick. Walk it off, he says. Classic ancient HR. The afternoon sun is relentless. You've now entered the phase of dehydration where you start questioning your life choices, your religious affiliations, and whether or not you've always been this sweaty. You hallucinate briefly, perhaps a cool stream, or a woman offering you pomegranate juice. Turns out it's just a fellow worker dumping sand from his shoe. You do get a water break, a few swigs from a shared jug. It's tepid, it's metallic, and it might be 15% algae, but it goes down like ambrosia. You even let out a soft sigh, which immediately draws glares from others. Too much joy is suspicious. You return to your basket hauling with the pace of a very sad tortoise. The sun begins to dip, not set, just dip, like it's teasing you. You look up at the pyramid. It's grown by maybe 1 block since morning. You might cry, but the tears would probably evaporate mid-cheek. And just when you think it's over, when your brain starts composing a hymn of gratitude to Ra for another day, Survive the Overseer announces a bonus task. You are now on dead goat duty, apparently. Something keeled over near the scaffolding, and you've drawn the short reed. You drag the goat by its legs, whispering apologies to the universe as you pass your co-workers. Someone makes a joke about fresh meat tonight, and you genuinely can't tell if they're kidding. As the final sun rays stretch over the sand, and the pyramid casts its long shadow, you return to camp for what passes as rest. But you know the worst part. Tomorrow, you do it all again, and your goat friend will not be there to distract you. You'd think the worst part of this whole pyramid building business is the actual construction. Right, the back-breaking lifting, the relentless heat, the fact that you're one loose sandal away from becoming another mystery bone for future archaeologists. But no. The true horror begins the moment someone yells the words, "Time to move out." Because it's commute time. Now. To modern ears, commute suggests a boring car ride with a podcast and a coffee for you. It's a screaming, chaotic parade of human exhaustion across burning sand, feet blistered, bellies growling, and 0 working camels in sight. You line up with the others, gripping your tools, which are mostly sticks, baskets, and that one lucky guy with a chipped copper chisel. Envy surges. The first thing you notice on the path is that it isn't really a path. It's a stretch of uneven dirt scattered with sharp stones, dried dung, and the occasional scarab beetle who looks like it could sue for workplace harassment. There's no signage, no shade, and certainly no cheerful greeting from a traffic officer. Your only guide is the cloud of dust kicked up by the feet of those ahead of you. You've barely gone 50 paces before the yelling starts. An overseer, whose voice seems genetically engineered to curdle goat milk, bellows something about discipline and stone quotas. A man to your left flinches and adjusts the rope looped over his shoulder, the same rope that's dragging a cart loaded with supplies. The cart isn't well balanced. It wobbles like your knees after a bad water day, and every dip in the road makes it shudder ominously. Next to the cart is Heartcuff, your assigned co-hauler, who has the personality of wet papyrus and the breath of a decomposing turnip. He never talks, except to mumble invectives at the cartwheel, which is stuck again. You bend down to adjust it, only to get slapped in the face by the tail of a nearby ox. Ancient Egypt, you're learning, has a lot of slapping tails. The oxen pulling the carts look just as miserable as you. One of them tries to lie down mid-path and gets bribed back to standing with a mouthful of spoiled dates. You briefly wonder if you can trade places with the ox. It's not that far-fetched. You're both sweaty, overworked, and wearing leather straps you didn't ask for. You keep walking. The sun climbs higher. Sand sneaks into your sandals, then your toes, then your sole. Your shoulders ache from the weight of your load, which today includes not just hauling stone tools, but also a crate of small copper chisels that you're absolutely sure will be broken within hours, every so often. The wind picks up and throws a mouthful of desert into your face, just to remind you who's boss. Spoiler, it's not you. Someone behind you sneezes violently, sending up a puff of dust. Sorry, he croaks. I think I inhaled a beetle. No one looks back. Beetle inhalation is pretty common. There's actually a betting pool in your unit for who will cough up the largest one this month. The current record holder swears he's had antennae. And then, because this day wasn't cursed enough, a cart up ahead overturns. A small chorus of gasps erupts. Stone tools go flying. So does the overseer's patience. He descends like a hawk, whip in hand, yelling about productivity and timelines and how this pyramid won't build itself, as if that wasn't painfully obvious. You and a few others are ordered to help clean the mess. Great. More bending, more lifting, more sand in your everything. As you gather the scattered chisels, you notice one with a jagged edge. Someone's already tried to sharpen it against the side of the pyramid, probably while cursing Pharaoh's name under their breath. You pocket it. You never know when a sharp object might come in handy. With the mess cleared, the journey resumes this time. You take a different route, one that cuts across what used to be a dry riverbed. It's uneven and treacherous. Your foot slips on a wet patch. Where did the water come from? And you land flat on your back. The sound you make is somewhere between a groan and a war cry. Several heads turn. No one helps. This is ancient Egypt. You get 2 things for free: sunburn and silence. Eventually, you reach the work site, a sprawling expanse of stone blocks, ramps, scaffolding, and men in various stages of disrepair. The pyramid rises before you, magnificent and mocking, like a stone mountain of pure ego. You unload your gear, stretch your aching limbs, and prepare for the real labour to begin, but not yet. First, you have to check in with the site supervisor, a man named Pamu, whose sense of humour died with the last dynasty. He inspects your tools, grunts at your cart, and finally waves you off. You're free to start hauling sand. Yes, sand, the very thing the entire desert is made of. You're moving it from one place to another, because, apparently, this batch is special, construction grade, Pamu says. You nod as if you understand. Inside, your soul rolls its eyes. You grab your shovel. It's bent and barely qualifies as a tool, but it's yours. You and the other sand haulers start scooping. The rhythm is hypnotic. Dig, scoop, dump, dig, scoop, dump. You fall into a trance, interrupted only when a scorpion crawls across your foot, and you perform a little death dance that earns scattered applause. Historians still debate whether the Great Pyramid project was organised chaos or just regular chaos with better branding. Some argue it was a highly efficient machine of statecraft. Others think it was a barely contained disaster held together by superstition, intimidation, and stale bread. You lean toward the latter. After an hour of sand duty, you're sent to the tool tent. There's been a chisel situation, which sounds suspiciously like someone snapped one in half and tried to hide the evidence in a bread loaf. Your job: inventory the damage and sort what's left. You discover 3 broken chisels, 2 intact, and 1 that somehow melted. Don't ask, you don't want to know. Your stomach growls again, not from hunger, necessarily more like a protest. You feel every bone in your body whisper, "We were not designed for this," and you agree. Still, despite it all, the screaming, the cart disaster, the cursed sand, you reach a strange conclusion as the sun begins to dip. At least you're not in charge of dragging the boulders. That fun starts next. You know how some people dream of building something that lasts forever? A legacy, a monument, a timeless contribution to civilization. You're living that dream, except it's someone else's, and instead of applause or statues in your honour, you get blisters and chronic neck pain, because today, your job is what scholars might generously call manual stone logistics. You call it the day I forgot what joy feels like. The boulder lies before you like an overgrown loaf of misery. It's easily 2 tons of unforgiving limestone. Roughly carved and smugly immobile, there's nothing modern about this process. No pulleys, no wheels, not even a donkey with a decent attitude. Just you, your team, some fraying rope, and a dream that this thing doesn't flatten you like a tortilla. First, you wet the sand. Yes, that's a thing. Someone found out, maybe through divine inspiration or sheer desperation, that wet sand creates less friction. So before dragging a block that could squash a small hut, you and your fellow sufferers gather around with buckets, splashing water onto the ramp like you're preparing it for a romantic date. You wonder if the boulder appreciates it. It does not. Your team forms a line. Each of you grabs a rope. You take the 3rd position, which means you're close enough to eat sand if the guy in front trips, and far enough back that if the boulder starts rolling uncontrollably, your face will be the first thing it crushes. Ideal. A shout goes up. Pull. Muscles strain. Feet dig into the soaked earth. The ropes creak. The sled groans like it knows it's in trouble. Slowly, painfully, the boulder begins to move, inching forward with all the enthusiasm of a cat being bathed. You chant in unison, not for spiritual reasons, but to stay coordinated. Hup, hup. The words don't mean anything. They're just noise, but the rhythm keeps you together. Well, mostly. One guy sneezes and throws off the timing. You nearly trip over your own rope. Progress is measured in centimetres. Every inch feels like an hour. Your back screams, your hands blister, and you swear the sun is laughing. There's a moment, just a moment, where you consider letting go, maybe pretending to faint. But then you remember the last guy who tried that. He got reassigned to leech wrangling at the sick tent. You pull harder. You finally crest the first slope. The block settles for a moment, and everyone collapses around it, panting, wheezing, and swearing oaths in languages that may or may not be real. One guy is trying to curse in Greek. He's from Nubia. No one corrects him. A junior overseer approaches. He's young, enthusiastic, and deeply hated. He claps once and says, Great start. Team only 12 more runs today. You stare at him. If looks could chisel stone, he'd be a statue by now. Still, orders are orders. You reload the sled, re-wet the ramp, and prepare for another round of fun with massive rocks. As you get into position again, someone cracks a joke about this being the Pharaoh's CrossFit program. You don't laugh, not because it isn't funny, it's just too real. By midday, your tunic is soaked through, not just from sweat, but also from sand slush, stray rope fibres, and maybe the tears of your ancestors. You've developed a new appreciation for copper tools, not because they work well, they don't, but because one of them doubles as a makeshift back scratcher between pulls. Historians still debate how the Egyptians managed to move such colossal stones without the wheel. Some suggest wooden sleds and animal fat. Others think they used complex systems of ramps and levers. A few fringe theories even involve aliens, which, frankly, you'd welcome at this point. Anything with a UFO and decent ergonomic equipment. Your ramp ends at a staging platform, basically a giant flat space where the blocks are temporarily arranged like a sandy Tetris game. A senior engineer, probably the only literate person within 10 miles, paces back and forth, pointing to where the block needs to go. You manoeuvre it into place with tiny nudges and a lot of yelling. Eventually, it fits. The engineer nods. Satisfied. Beautiful, he mutters. The gods will be pleased. You don't feel beautiful. You feel like someone has scooped out your spine and replaced it with jelly. You lie flat on the staging platform for a moment, face first in the dust, and contemplate your life choices. Then you remember break time. Break time is 10 minutes of blessed freedom. You scamper to the shaded corner of the platform where someone has left a jug of what might be beer or spoiled vinegar. Either way, it's coldish and vaguely bubbly. You drink it, you don't ask questions. Nearby, a man named Jehuti is trying to nap while balancing his head on a flat rock. Another is drawing a crude picture in the sand that might be a bird. Or maybe it's the overseer being eaten by one. Artistic intent is flexible here. Someone passes around a single date, one. It's shriveled, sticky, and immediately causes a 5-man argument about whether it's ripe or cursed. You decline. You don't need fruit politics today. Break ends far too soon. The horn blows again. You wipe your face, grab your rope, and sigh. More boulders await. And now the sun is at its highest. You squint up and wonder, for the 100th time, why Pharaoh couldn't have built something underground, or better yet, nothing. What's wrong with a nice cottage? The afternoon brings a new twist, an injured team member. He's twisted his ankle on a cracked ramp plank. The overseer sighs, orders him dragged to the medic, and assigns you to double pull on the next run. That's twice the rope, twice the weight, 0 extra water. You don't cry, you just let your eyes leak respectfully. Still, you manage somehow. Call it grit, call it stubbornness, call it the fear of getting reassigned to dung pit duty. By day's end, you've helped move 3 full boulders and assisted in 3 more. Your arms are trembling, your shoulders are knots, your calves are trying to unionize. As the last block thuds into place, the sun begins to dip. You look up at the structure you've helped raise a smooth wall of massive stone, clean and sharp-edged. The wind brushes over it, lifting a faint cloud of dust. It catches the light. It's almost beautiful. Almost. Then the wind changes direction and throws the dust straight into your eyes. Classic. You turn to head back to camp, but a familiar voice stops you. Night shift needs bodies, the overseer barks. Oh, right. You thought the day was over. Buddy, this pyramid doesn't sleep, and apparently neither do you. You're not entirely sure how time works anymore. It could be Tuesday, it could be next Pharaoh Day. All you know is the sun's gone down. Your legs have stopped sending signals to your brain, and your arms are hanging from your shoulders like wet laundry. You thought the worst was over. You were wrong, because now, under flickering oil torches and a sky full of indifferent stars, you're reporting for Night's Boulder Duty TM, a proud tradition of continuing your suffering in slightly cooler temperatures. The ramp glows dimly under torchlight, shadows writhing like tired snakes, and looming over it all, the pyramid, half finished and still judging you. You didn't even get a proper dinner, just a smear of mashed lentils slapped on a flatbread and handed to you like an apology note from the kitchen. The good news, it didn't have bugs. The bad news, that's only because the bugs have standards. Tonight's job, Boulder reshuffling, apparently. Some senior scribe decided 3 stones on the west face are aesthetic outliers, which means you and your buddies are now repositioning 2-ton ego symbols because some guy squinted wrong at a shadow. You rejoin your team, what's left of it. Anyway, Jehuti is still limping. Harkuf looks like he's sleepwalking, and the new guy, Sem, keeps whispering to a stick. No one asks why. Everyone has their thing. The night air is cooler, yes, but also damp and unsettling. The wind from the desert carries strange sounds, jackals, distant chanting, possibly someone crying over the discovery that their only sandal is missing again. The torches are planted in the sand like glowing sentinels. Their light dances across your path, revealing every rock, crack, and potential stub hazard. You start dragging one of the outlier blocks with your team. It's perched on a high ramp, too narrow and too long, clearly designed by someone who's never touched a rope in his life. You pull harder, then you slide. There's a moment where your entire life flashes before your eyes. Most of it is stone and sand, punctuated by breadcrumbs and bad water. The rope jerks, your teammates scream, and by some divine miracle, or perhaps because you're too tired to die properly, you regain your footing. The block shifts, a little too fast. Slow it, someone yells. What do you think I'm doing? Serenading it, you yell back. But it's swallowed by the wind. The sled teeters, dust billows. You plant your heels in the ramp and tug with every shredded muscle in your body. The stone finally stops resting, slightly skewed, like it's mocking your form. Close enough, says the overseer. You resist the urge to launch yourself off the ramp in protest. You and your crew move on to the next block, each step heavier than the last. Sem, the stick whisperer, suddenly mutters something about a curse. This block is bad. The air around it is cold. You touch the stone. It is cold, but so is everything tonight. That doesn't mean it's cursed, just annoying, probably. Still, you swap places with him, not because you believe in ghosts, just you know precaution. The repositioning continues. Each block becomes a personal enemy. They all have names now: Slippy, Cracker, Footmasher. You don't mean to anthropomorphize ancient limestone. But hey, it's late, you're tired, and when you whisper, stay, and the rock stays, it almost feels like communication. Historians still argue about whether pyramid construction occurred at night. Some say yes, to beat the heat. Others insist only basic tasks continued after sundown. You're here to tell them yes. It happened. No, it didn't help. At one point, your crew takes a short break. You sit on a smaller block and look out over the landscape in the distance. The torches line the scaffolding like fireflies caught in a net. The stars above are sharp and countless, watching you silently. There's no city noise, no traffic, no screens, just wind, stone, and the rhythmic clink of chisels. It should be peaceful, but you're covered in sweat, grime, and something that might be goat hair. You lean back and nearly fall off the block. Gravity still undefeated. Your break ends too soon. The overseer, this one, older and with the raspy voice of a gravel pit, claps his hands. Time to resume. You rise, knees cracking like kindling. Now you're on pulley duty. This involves hauling rope over a beam to lift smaller stones onto upper tiers. It's less dramatic than dragging boulders, but somehow even more exhausting. Each pull feels like an argument with physics. You and a partner. Some guy named K with biceps that could intimidate statues. Coordinate your efforts. 3, 2, pull, he shouts. The stone rises inch by excruciating inch. The rope digs into your palms. Your arms burn. Your mind begins composing hate poetry to the gods of construction. K chants something under his breath, possibly a prayer, possibly a recipe, you don't ask. Finally, the stone reaches its destination. You lower it gently onto the platform and collapse onto your back. You look at Kai. He's already asleep, standing up, impressive. You hear a sharp whistle. Time for the last task stone inspection. What's that, you ask? It's where you follow a scribe and a priest around while they tap on the blocks and argue about divine alignment, if a block feels wrong. Guess who moves it again? You. You don't know what makes a block feel wrong. You're starting to think no one does. The scribe taps a stone and shakes his head, too echoey. You stare at him. It's a rock. Exactly, he replies, with the smugness of someone who has never once pulled anything heavier than a stylus. The priest agrees the stone must move. Of course it must. You nod, turn to the block, and sigh the sigh of a man who knows what it is to lose. Finally, the stars shift. The last torch sputters, and the overseer grumbles the magic words. That's it. You don't even walk back to camp, you float. Maybe it's exhaustion, maybe it's delirium, maybe you're just sleep paralysed while still standing. You arrive back to your mat. It's slightly damper than when you left it, but it's home. You collapse. The last thing you remember is the goose honking again, as if reminding you sunrise is only hours away. And tomorrow is ramp maintenance day. Lucky you. If there's one universal truth about ancient Egypt, besides don't insult the pharaoh and scorpions hide in your sandals, it's this: break time is a lie. You crawl out of your sleep like a beetle recovering from a thunderstorm. Your mat smells worse than usual, which is impressive, considering it already had the aroma of feet, mildew, and faint despair. Someone, possibly a goat, has eaten half your headscarf. You consider revenge. Then remember you lack the energy and legal rights to do anything about it. Outside, dawn is a dusty smear across the horizon. The sky turns from black to blue, and you're already sweating. Another day, another stab at the impossible building a geometrically perfect mountain with nothing but human sadness and elbow grease. Today's surprise lunch is coming early. That should be a good thing. Right. Well, lunch is relative, and early is just because you're getting half a break before ramp inspection begins. You shuffle toward the food line, bones creaking like a wind chime made of sore muscles. There's no real line, just a cluster of grimy elbows and passive-aggressive grunts. A large woman with the forearms of a bricklayer is serving the rations. She slaps a dollop of something beige and steaming onto a leaf and doesn't make eye contact. You hold it delicately. It jiggles. Is it lentils? Is it porridge? Is it just disappointment in solid form? You take a bite. It tastes like yesterday. And maybe the day before. There's definitely a hint of salt. Could be from actual salt. Could be from someone's tears. Culinary ambiguity is part of the charm. Today, though, there's a twist. You got a piece of onion. Not a full one, just a sliver. A gift from the gods. You chew it slowly, reverently. You try to savour it, but your mouth is so dry it feels like the onion is trying to escape. You chase it down with a gulp of warm water, which tastes slightly better than swamp breath. Someone near you mumbles that there was a fig in last week's lunch. A fig. The group goes quiet, like someone just spoke of a divine miracle. You imagine it, round and sweet, bursting with flavour. Then you remember you're eating a mystery mash and sitting in the shadow of a half-finished tomb. Lunch break lasts exactly 10 minutes. The sun hasn't even hit peak melt-your-face mode, and already the overseers are shouting about ramp clearance. You and a dozen others are chosen to go up and sweep the construction ramps. Now, when they say sweep, you're picturing something domestic, a broom, maybe a nice straw brush. No, this is you, hunched over, using a bundle of dry reeds tied together with a string of someone's regrets, scraping rock dust off a 30-degree incline. The ramp stretches above you like a ramp to the gods, except they're not coming down to help. At best, they're watching, probably laughing, probably eating real figs. You begin your ascent. The ramp is slick from the previous night's water spill, and you're crawling like a very determined crab. Your job is to clear away debris, pebbles, and anything that might trip a worker or damage a stone, which is ironic, because in doing so, you nearly trip 4 times. You reach the top, panting like a dog left in the sun. Your hands are raw, your sandals have become exfoliation devices, and then a break, a real one. You sit on the edge of the scaffolding, feet dangling over the ledge, watching workers below haul stones like ants cursed with consciousness. It's oddly beautiful, in a tragic heatstroke-tinged kind of way. Kay plops down beside you, chewing what might be a roasted cricket, one a bite he offers. You decline. You're not at eating bugs for bonding level yet. You share silence, real silence, just the sound of wind whistling through the ramps, the scrape of wood against stone, and distant chanting from a priest who's either blessing the site or yelling at a bird. Then someone screams. Not a terrified scream, more like a frustration shriek. A younger worker, maybe 15, has dropped a chisel down the side of the pyramid. It bounces once, twice, and vanishes. You all watch it go, like it's the last surviving dream of youth. No one's getting that back, Kay mutters. Probably fell into the afterlife. Breaks over. Back to the base, where today's real task begins, ramp repairs. Now, this isn't just any ramp, it's the main artery to the heart of the pyramid, and it's been walked on, dragged over, drenched, cursed, and rebuilt more times than you can count. Your job mix mortar. Mortar in ancient Egypt is not the smooth, creamy stuff of modern construction. No, it's a chunky, half stone, half mud concoction that sticks to your skin, your clothes, and probably your soul. You mix it in massive clay pots with what looks like an awl. Your arms ache, your back begs for mercy. You keep stirring. You smear the mix onto wooden planks, wedge them into the soft rock, and press hard with your full body weight. Sometimes the wood snaps, sometimes your will does. At one point, a foreman asks for more adhesive sand, and you spend 20 minutes trying to figure out which part of the desert isn't just regular sand. You give him a different pile. He nods. You're 78% sure it was the same. Lunch part 2 arrives late, a scrap of bread, and what someone swears is a dried fig pit. You don't ask how they got it. You just inhale the bread and chew the pit thoughtfully, like an art critic pretending to understand the piece. Historians still argue whether workers were fed well on pyramid sites. Some evidence points to planned rations and occasional meat. Others suggest you were lucky if your food didn't try to crawl away. You lean toward the latter. You once saw a loaf of bread sprout legs. Still not over it. As the sun begins to lower, your arms are coated in dust, your clothes are stiff with mud, and your eyes are stinging from the glare. The ramp is smoother now, safer, functional. It doesn't look like much, but it means tomorrow's hauling won't involve quite as much screaming. Kay pats you on the back. One ramp closer to being done, he says. You grunt, or one ramp closer to doing it all over again. You head back to camp, each step heavier than the last. Your matter waits. The sky burns orange, the pyramid glows, and somewhere in your mind, a voice whispers, maybe tomorrow they'll serve actual food. You're starting to think there's a secret memo circulating among the gods, and it reads, "Let's see how far a human body can stretch before it just gives up and becomes sand." Because today isn't just physically brutal, it's a full-on tour of bodily betrayal. You wake up late, which in pyramid builder time means not already standing. The sun is halfway up, and the goose hasn't even bothered to honk. Instead, you're greeted by a different sound, moaning, not the romantic kind. The kind that says someone just tried to stand and realised their spine now bends in 3 new directions. Jehuti, the one with the flat rock pillow, hasn't moved. Harkuf is crawling toward the latrine like a sand-drenched slug. And you just stare at the sky for a full minute, contemplating whether the gods might accept resignation letters written in sweat. But there's no time for existential crisis. The overseer is doing roll call by yelling names and smacking his whip rhythmically like some sadistic metronome. You drag yourself up, joints cracking like hieroglyphic bubble wrap, and hobble toward your team's assigned duty debris clearance. Now, here's the thing about debris, it never ends. There's always more rocks, broken tools, collapsed scaffolding, mysterious smears that no one talks about. Your job is to cart it all away with a wooden sled that's cracked, unbalanced, and smells suspiciously like fermented onions, much like you. You're assigned a partner named Bakari, a lanky man with one eye, 2 teeth, and an infinite supply of insults for the pharaoh. He mumbles non-stop as you both load chunks of stone into the sled. This block looks like his jaw, cracked and useless. You nod. It's too early to defend royal honour. Mid-morning, the first collapse happens. A plank snaps on the upper ramp. A small landslide of rubble spills down, like the pyramid itself has decided to sneeze. One worker tumbles down with it. His name was Neshi. He's covered in bruises, but alive, barely. The overseer walks over, prods him with the end of a staff, and says, "Get up." Neshi groans. "Fine, you're on resting duty now." Resting duty. That's what they call too injured to work, but not dead enough to bury. You and Bakari haul your sled past the sick tent. It's full. People moan, twitch, or stare blankly at the ceiling. One guy's talking to a stone like it's his cousin. Another is licking his own elbow. You try not to make eye contact. At one point, the medic, a wiry man who smells like boiled beetroot, grabs you and checks your wrists. No swelling yet. He mutters, "You'll live." He moves on. You wonder how low the bar is for survival if that counts as a clean bill of health. Your break comes late and is more of a pause while your heart rate resets from dangerous to concerning. You find a spot in the shade beside a pile of discarded chisels. Bakari pulls out a stolen raisin and divides it in half. You stare at him in awe. "Where'd you get that?" you whisper. "Traded for it." "With what?" He shrugs. A dead scarab and a dirty joke. You eat your half like it's a banquet. Suddenly, a scream pierces the air. Another worker, Seti, is writhing in the dust. He's been stung. A scorpion, fat and shiny, scuttles away as chaos erupts. The medic rushes over with a cloth soaked in beer and possibly regret. Seti is dragged off. You return to the ramp, now freshly cleared of debris. It gleams in the afternoon light, like a runway of labour-induced misery. Your team is tasked with reinforcing the base. This involves hammering wooden wedges into the stone to prevent shifting. It also involves accidentally smashing your fingers, which you do, twice. By now you're dizzy. The sun feels closer than usual, like Ra himself is leaning in to see if you're faint. You take a break without asking, just plop down on a rock and breathe through your mouth. Kai walks by, dumps a handful of water in your lap, and says, "You're welcome." You nod. You're too tired to be angry about the wet loincloth. As the day drags on, more injuries pile up. A guy named Pentu throws out his back while lifting a stone, and now walks like he's inventing a new dance. A girl from the pottery crew slices her hand on a shard and faints. The overseers rotate workers like chess pieces, each one slightly more broken than the last. Historians still argue how these labourers were treated. Some evidence suggests decent medical care and planned shifts. Others believe it was more like ancient capitalism, work until you drop. Then we'll use your body as filler mortar. By sunset, The work site resembles a battlefield. Bruised knees, wrapped ankles, swollen fingers. You limp back to camp alongside others who look like they fought a war against geometry. Dinner is a thin stew with a suspiciously chewy texture. Bakari says it's goat meat. You both laugh, then cry, then laugh again because emotions are now leaking at random. You sit around a dying fire, legs splayed out like broken tripods. Someone is humming a song about figs. Another guy carves a small pyramid into a scrap of wood and mutters, "For when I retire." You lie back, arms flung out, and stare at the stars. They twinkle, mockingly. Tomorrow, someone else will collapse. Someone else will lose a toe to falling debris. Someone else might get resting duty. But tonight, you're still here, still mostly whole, still smelling faintly of onions and ambition. And that, apparently, is the closest thing to success around here. This morning, before the sun has even finished scratching its rays over the desert horizon, you are blessed with news so strange, so delightful, that you briefly consider the possibility of divine intervention today is beer day. Now, let's set expectations. You're not exactly uncorking a cold, golden IPA in a frosted mug. This is ancient Egypt. Your beer is a cloudy, lukewarm slurry, halfway between porridge and bread soup, with the consistency of guilt and the aftertaste of despair. But it's yours, and it's free, sort of. You hear the announcement during roll call. The overseer shouts, 3 jugs per crew today. Praise the Pharaoh. Nobody shouts back. Instead, there's a shared moment of stunned silence, as if the collective soul of the labour camp is blinking. Bakari lets out a low whistle. That's 2 more jugs than last week. Kay, still nursing his swollen shoulder from yesterday's boulder dance, mutters, "Must be a holiday, or someone high up died." You shrug, doesn't matter, the beer's here. But of course, there's a catch. The jugs aren't delivered to your sleeping mat with a side of olives. You have to earn them by hauling limestone from the outer quarry. A section so far away it may technically count as a new zip code. Still, for beer, you'll walk. The trek to the outer quarry takes over an hour. You carry your tools, slung over your back, your feet crunching across gravel and powdery sand. The morning sun hasn't yet started its scorched earth campaign, which gives you a brief window of comfort, or at least less agony. You arrive to find an unholy mess. The stone blocks are irregular, misaligned, and covered in bird droppings. A scribe is arguing with a sculptor about dimensions. You and your team are told to load the finished stones onto sleds and begin the haul back to the main site. That's when you notice the jugs, 3 of them, sitting on a wooden stand like the crown jewels. They're sealed with reed plugs and marked with the symbol for Kent Kaus, a brewmaster known for producing the least objectionable swill in the region. One worker weeps openly at the sight, but you don't get to drink yet. Oh no, the jugs are to be carried back alongside the stone blocks. They'll be opened only if your team returns the full quota of material before mid-afternoon, which, in ancient Egypt, is code for do it fast, don't die, and maybe you get a sip. You tie a jug to your sled with a strip of leather. It sloshes when you move, sending up a faint sour yeast smell. It's intoxicating, not because it's strong, trust me. This beer couldn't get a dung beetle tipsy, but because it represents the rarest substance in your life reward. Your team sets off, the sled is loaded, the sun is rising, the sand is hot, the jug wobbles like a taunt. You chant to keep pace, 1 step, 2 steps, beer steps. It becomes a mantra. Your heels dig into the earth. Your fingers burn. The rope digs into your hips. Midway through the haul, disaster strikes. A crack appears in one of the sled's runners. It splinters under pressure, and the sled tilts. The stone block slides, the beer jug bounces. Everyone dives, miraculously. The jug doesn't break. It rolls to a stop beside a small cactus. You scoop it up like it's a newborn. The The team breathes a collective sigh. Kay kisses it. You all vow silently to never speak of this again. Back on track, you switch to the backup sled and redistribute the load. It's slower now, harder. You pass another crew team 6, who are bickering about spilled grain. One of them yells, "Your mother chews bricks," which is a real zinger around here. Finally, as the sun arcs over the peak of the pyramid, you return to the base site. The jugs are handed to the overseer, who inspects the seals, weighs the stone blocks, and grunts approval. "Drink," he says, and for once, no one questions it. You pry the plug from your jug and take a gulp. It is without exaggeration the most glorious thing you've ever tasted. It's warm, sour, thick with barley pulp, and possibly has bugs. You do not care. You drink again. Everyone does. The mood lifts instantly. People smile. Bakari breaks into a dance that involves more knee than necessary. Jehuti composes a song about beer's healing properties. A young worker, barely past puberty, gulps his share and immediately hiccups for 10 straight minutes. A few even get brave. Sem, our local mystic, begins offering prophecies. I see a time when no one builds pyramids. Instead, they ride in metal chariots and shout into glass stones. You nod solemnly. You're buzzed enough to believe it. Historians agree that beer was a staple of the ancient Egyptian diet, not just a luxury, but a daily necessity. It was calorie-dense, hydrating sometimes, and available even to workers. In fact, records show that some labourers were paid in beer. You suspect your entire salary today is sitting in your gut right now. You lie back, jug half empty beside you, and bask in a rare breeze. The pyramid glows in the sun, stones stacked neatly from your previous suffering. For a moment, the labour, the dust, the blisters, they all seem manageable, almost worth it. Then a supervisor appears. "Break's over," he says. "We're digging drainage trenches now." You groan. But hey, at least you're digging drunk. So, here's the thing about ancient construction sites. They don't come with user manuals. No one hands you a neat little scroll saying dig here, not there, or beware of surprise aquifers. You just dig, pray, and hope you don't accidentally invent the Nile 2.0. Today, you've been reassigned to trench duty. Not glamorous, not even dignified. You've gone from hauling stones to quite literally digging ditches. Why? Because the pyramid is sinking. Not metaphorically. The base stones are shifting ever so slightly because someone didn't consider what happens when you build a multi-ton triangle on soil that's basically fancy cat litter. Trenches are meant to redirect water during the rainy season, which is generous, because rain here is rarer than a full portion of bread. But when it does come, oh, it comes like the gods took a bucket to your blueprints. You and your team are handed tools, a bent shovel, a reed basket, and the ancient Egyptian version of a measuring stick. Aye, someone's foot. Kai, ever the optimist, says, at least it's soft soil. It's not. It's packed clay with the personality of granite. You stab at the ground. It laughs. You try again. This time the shovel bounces off like you've offended it. You lean in, gritting your teeth, and manage to peel away a sliver of earth roughly the size of a date pit. At this rate, you'll finish by the time the next dynasty rolls around. The sun is unforgiving, but the wind's picked up. Dust stings your eyes. Somewhere, a lizard skitters by with more energy than your entire crew combined. You dig anyway. What else is there to do? The trench has to slope downward at just the right angle, or water won't flow, too steep, and it erodes, too flat, and it puddles. You try not to laugh at the idea that you're now part-time hydrologist, despite only just mastering how to not drop things. Sem, who still talks to sticks, claims he can divine the perfect angle by listening to the sand. You let him try. He lays on the ground, ear pressed to the dirt, humming softly. Here, he says, you dig there. It's actually softer. You don't ask how, you just make a mental note to stop doubting the sand whisperer. Your progress is slow but real. Every few meters, you stop to bale out clumps into baskets, which are then hauled off to the ever-growing pile of dirt nobody wants. This pile is affectionately known as Mount Useless, and it's taller than your tent. Around midday, complication arises. You hit something hard, not stone, not clay, something hollow. Everyone gathers. You scrape away gently and reveal a narrow shaft. A tunnel. Oh no, someone swears. The supervisor shows up, takes one look and groans. We've hit an old tomb, he mutters again. Turns out, this entire area is basically a landmine of forgotten crypts and half-buried chambers. Build a pyramid, sure, just don't trip over the last guy's legacy. Now you're told to carefully widen the trench, in case the tunnel below collapses. You're not trained in archaeology. You don't even know what archaeology is, but now you're excavating someone's afterlife. You uncover fragments of pottery, some beads, and what might be a mummified toe. It's hard to say. You rebury it, out of respect, and also fear. Bakari mutters a prayer. Jehuti draws a protective symbol in the sand. You pretend not to notice that your left eyelid is twitching. Historians still argue how much ancient construction overlapped with tomb sites. Some claim it was all coordinated. Others say it was a free-for-all with the occasional oops. Sorry for desecrating Grandpa's eternal resting place. You lean toward the second theory. The trench curves now, dodging the tunnel. It's shaping up well. You can almost imagine water flowing through it, cool, purposeful, not full of the despair you've been sweating into the soil. The supervisor returns and nods. Acceptable. You almost smile. Then he adds, now do another. Parallel to this one, wider. Of course. Because why stop when your spine's still attached? You get back to work. Hours pass. You dig, dump, repeat. Your hands are blistered. Your back is a question mark. You stop caring about where the dirt goes. You're just trying to stay conscious. At one point, a breeze lifts your tunic and slaps you in the face with your own fabric. Even the wind is disrespectful now. Eventually, the sun dips. The trench is done, 2 of them. Actually, neat, angled, and ready to pretend they'll solve the problem. You lie beside one, staring at the deepening sky, and wonder if this is what success feels like covered in mud. Missing a toenail, and about to chew a dinner that might be a shoe. Dinner is surprise lentil mash again. Bakari offers to swap his with yours. Claiming he's fasting, you raise an eyebrow. He grins. Just wanted to see if you'd say yes. You don't. You eat in silence, watching stars wink into view. One of them twinkles particularly bright. You name it not a trench. You turn to Kay. Think the pharaohs ever dug a ditch. Kay chuckles, only with his words. You both laugh until you wheeze. The camp quiets. Someone's singing a lullaby to themselves. Someone else is already snoring. You lie back, limbs twitching, heart slow, breath heavy, and just as you start to drift into a blissful, trench-free slumber, hey, Bakari whispers. Tomorrow's platform levelling. You don't respond. You've mentally left your body, and you're not coming back till morning, so, platform levelling. That sounds innocuous, doesn't it? Like something done with a clipboard and a calm attitude. Maybe a couple of s and let's check that angle again. But here in Pyramid Land, it's code for move mountains, but make it subtle. You're up before dawn again because apparently that's your brand now. There's no honking goose this morning, no cheery overseer, just the faint knowledge that today your job involves doing geometry with your legs. The levelling platform sits at the very base of the pyramid's western wall, and it's a monster. Picture an expanse of limestone that stretches so far you swear you can see the curve of the earth if not from the horizon. Then from sheer exhaustion, the problem it's not flat enough. Someone in Royal Engineering decided that a 0.3 degree tilt was unacceptable to the gods. And now here you are with a chisel and a dream. You're handed a copper level. Well, not a real level. It's a string tied between two sticks, with a plumb bob dangling from the middle. If the string doesn't align with the markings on a nearby measuring block, congratulations, you get to start chipping. Your team divides into groups: the markers, the measurers, the chiselers, and you currently assign to dirt scraper, which sounds exactly like what it is. The first thing you notice is the dust. It's constant, swirling, omnipresent. You're not breathing air, you're breathing pyramid skin. Your nostrils are lined with ancient limestone. Your tongue crunches when you swallow. You crawl across the slab, checking for dips, bumps or cracks. One area, they say, has subsidence, another is too convex. You want to scream it's a rock, but no one's listening, because in pyramid terms, even a 5mm bump can make the whole thing collapse, or worse, look weird. As the sun rises, the heat returns. It seeps into the stones, turning the entire work site into a hot plate. You can feel it radiating through your sandals, up your legs, into your soul. You lose track of how many times you say, "Ow," just from touching something. Chiseling begins. It's delicate work. You can't just smash away like you're mad at your in-laws. You have to finesse its small taps, careful peels, like carving a sculpture you deeply resent. The copper chisel dulls quickly, so you're constantly sharpening it on a slab nearby, which is already worn to a nub. Kay is chiseling next to you. His rhythm is maddeningly perfect. Tap, tap, slide, tap, tap, slide. You hate how efficient he is. Been doing this since I was 10, he says, grinning. What did you do before that? Nothing, just birth and then rocks. You both laugh. And for a moment, the pyramid doesn't feel like the villain of your story. It feels like a very large, very demanding boss who occasionally lets you bond over shared trauma. Then Sem approaches. He's holding a string and chanting again. Today is uneven, he says. You nod. That's the point. No, the air is uneven. He walks away. You make a note to maybe start chanting. It seems to be helping him. Around mid-morning, there's a minor crisis. One of the markers drops the plumb bob into a crack between two slabs. That means it's gone. Forever. The overseer has a meltdown. You get sent to retrieve a backup, which involves sprinting back to the supply tent, tripping over 3 baskets, and nearly losing your dignity to a wildly territorial goose. Back at the site, you're reassigned to water pouring, not for people, for stone. Turns out, wetting the surface makes it easier to shave the high points. So now you're carrying buckets of lukewarm, algae-flavoured water up and down the platform. Each splash creates a hiss as it hits the baking limestone, followed by a cloud of steam and a fresh layer of misery. You catch your reflection in the puddle. You look like a statue that's halfway through being forgotten. Lunch is bread. Not new bread, old bread that's been re-dried, which is a generous way of saying someone found it, wiped it off, and decided it's still food. You dunk it in leftover beer to soften it. That helps. A little, but not enough. Historians still wonder how precisely the pyramid base was levelled. Some believe water was used to find the lowest points, a massive flooded grid system. Others say it was done by eye, hand, and a lot of swearing. You now understand that it was the second option, with extra swearing. By afternoon, your legs are cramping. You've been squatting for hours, leaning into the stone with your whole body, praying to every known deity that you don't chip too far and create a divot. That happened last week. They covered it with sand and no one talks about it. Your back is locked, your arms are noodles, your hands blistered into little maps of suffering. But the stone is smooth. It shines faintly in the setting sun. You run your hand over it and feel nothing. No bumps, no dips, just flawless limestone. Flat and pure, ready to bear the weight of eternity. You look up and realise you've levelled 5 metres of the platform. Your name isn't carved anywhere. No one will know. But you do. You did that, A strange pride stirs in your chest. Until the overseer yells, "We're rechecking the north section. Something's off." You drop your chisel. Your soul makes a sound only dogs can hear. You shuffle north. Turns out, the off section was just a bird shadow. Everyone agrees to call it a day. Back at camp, your fellow workers slump in their spots like wilted vegetables. Jehuti is icing his wrists with a clay bowl. Bakari's lying face down in the sand, muttering about slopes. Kai is asleep, standing up again. Dinner is barley mash with a hint of salt. You eat it with gratitude, not because it tastes good, but because your body believes you've survived another day. And honestly, that's the only thing flat around here. You know how some days just feel cursed? Today opens with a noise that makes your blood go cold, the unmistakable crack of timber under tension. That's right, scaffolding failure. No one's even had breakfast yet. The pyramid's northeast scaffolding, a web of palm trunks. Ropes and hope has given out, snapping like stale breadsticks under the weight of a new stone delivery. A crash echoes through the worksite, followed by dust, shouting, and the kind of silence that means everyone's thinking the same thing. Please don't let this be my problem. Spoiler it is. Within minutes, you and your team are summoned. Today. Your new job title is Temporary Emergency Structural Stabilizer, which is fancy talk for your rebuilding scaffolding with sticks you hope won't betray you. First step, clearing the rubble. A tangled mess of beams, rope, and very confused stone blocks greets you. Your team begins dragging palm trunks out of the heap like giant, splintery noodles. A beam groans ominously as you lift it, and you briefly consider whether now's a good time to fake a twisted ankle. Too late. Kai's already tried that. Once the area's cleared, you're handed rope, actual rope, real, quality fibre. The kind of stuff they usually reserve for royal barges or fancy processions. You look at the overseer. He shrugs. Big stones need big rope. You suppress a cheer. This is the construction equivalent of getting upgraded to first class. Your job is to lash new beams together into a stable scaffold frame. You work with Kai and Jehuti, who has surprisingly delicate hands for a guy who once fought a baboon. Sem stands nearby, chanting something protective. No one complains at this point. His weirdness feels like insurance. Tying the beams isn't hard. What's hard is balancing on already built sections while swinging a hammer made from rock. Every thump reverberates up your spine. The palm trunks sway. A bird lands near your head and glares at you, clearly judging your knotwork. By midday, the scaffold frame is taking shape. It rises beside the pyramid like an awkward wooden spider, tall enough to make your stomach drop if you lean too far. You clamber higher, roping in support beams, checking for give, muttering prayers that include several made-up deities. Lunch is called, and you're lowered down with a winch, not for fun, for safety. Someone once tried to jump off the third tier, and now he walks like a drunk scorpion. Lunch is stale bread, a handful of lentils, and a single clove of garlic. You eat it in the shade of a stone block, legs trembling from altitude jitters. Bakari swings by and offers a date. You accept before realising it's just the pit. You can pretend, he says. You don't speak to him for 5 minutes. The afternoon shift is inspection. Not by your team, by priests. That's right. A group of linen-draped, eyeliner-wearing holy men arrive to bless the site. Their idea of blessing involves tapping things with staffs, muttering incantations, and declaring which parts of the scaffold are offensive to Ra. One priest insists a beam be replaced because it smells too green. You're not sure what that means, no one does, but guess who gets to haul up a replacement? You. And the green beam, it's now firewood. That's what we call an upgrade. Later, while climbing the new structure to add a railing, your sandal slips. For one glorious moment, you hang mid-air, arms flailing, brain screaming. This is how they'll remember me. But Kay catches your rope and pulls you in like a fish, gasping for dry land. You owe me beer, he pants. You owe me a new spine, you mutter. By sundown, the scaffold is done. It stands tall, proud, and only mostly wobbly. You and the crew climb to the top and admire the view. The pyramid glows orange in the setting sun from up here. You can see the Nile winding like a silver snake through the desert. The city glitters in the distance. It almost feels peaceful. Then Jehuti sneezes and knocks over a water jug. Okay, you say, back down. You descend with a careful grace you didn't know you had. Each step is a prayer, each rope a lifeline. You touch the ground and kiss it, no shame. Back at camp, everyone's buzzing. Word has spread Pharaoh might visit next week. There's panic, urgency, wild cleaning. Someone suggests repainting the quarry flags. Someone else suggests repainting the stones. You lie on your mat, staring at the stars, and wonder what Pharaoh even does. Does he know what scaffolding is? Has he ever touched a chisel? Probably not. Still, part of you hopes he comes, just so you can whisper, "Look what I built, and by the way, it tried to kill me." Tomorrow, it's back to stone lifting, because scaffolds don't fill themselves, and neither do scars. You wake up sore in places you didn't even know had nerves. Your shoulder expected, your lower back standard, but your earlobes. That's new. That's scaffolding trauma for you. Today, they've got one last surprise before the weekend's final burial decor prep. That's right. After building the ramp, dragging the stones, hauling the water, scraping the platforms, and almost dying beneath a pile of judgmental palm trunks, you've now graduated to the most elite, most precise, most spiritually important role of all. Engraving a dead guy's name over and over and over. You report to the tomb site just after sunrise, squinting through the haze of fatigue and wondering how many pharaohs one civilization really needs. The burial chamber smells like incense and limestone, with just a faint trace of burnt onions. Inside, it's chaos. Scribes are everywhere, flitting about with their reed pens like bureaucratic mosquitoes. Workers line up in front of slabs of stone with chisels, receiving instructions from priests who make everything sound like an urgent cosmic riddle. You're assigned to a wall, a particularly long wall. Your task: carve the name of Pharaoh Khufu in beautiful, reverent, official hieroglyphs, at least 100 times. Each cartouche must be perfect, balanced, divine. You stare at the sample. It has 5 symbols: a duck, a sun, a folded cloth, a snake, and what might be a donut. Easy, right. You chisel the first one. Not bad. The second slightly drunk-looking duck. By the 10th, the donut has turned into a frisbee and the snake looks like a question mark. A priest walks by, clicks his tongue, and says, "Start again." You take a deep breath. Tap, tap, slide. Chiseling hieroglyphs is like writing calligraphy with a brick. It's not just labour, it's art. The duck must look serene, the snake must look wise, the sun must not resemble a fat beetle. You mess up once, and the block gets trashed. You mess up twice, and you get reassigned to dung duty. By mid-morning, you've completed 6 flawless cartouches. The priest nods. You don't cry, not outwardly. Then comes the twist. Pharaoh wants an inscription added to the ceiling, a poem praising his divine rule. Who gets to climb the narrow scaffolding inside the tomb and chisel the son of all mankind upside down? You do. The crawl space above the burial chamber is barely wide enough for your shoulders. You lie on your back, arms raised, chisel trembling, and try not to think about how the last guy who worked here was sealed into a tomb by accident. "Just tap gently," says the supervisor. You do. Stone dust rains down into your eyes. You blink, you sneeze, you tap again. By the time you finish the first line, your arms are noodles. The poem reads, "Khufu the Great, strong of arm, bright of face." You pause. You've just realised you wrote bright of fart. The hieroglyph is off by a single line. but it's a critical line. A priest climbs up. He stares at your carving. He squints. Then he shrugs. Maybe no one will notice. You both agree to never speak of it again. Lunch is late. Again, bread, onion, some kind of root. Someone found a lump of honey in the kitchen stash and auctioned it off. Jehuti tried to trade his sandals. He lost the sandals and the bid. Sayonara. Afternoon is torch duty. You and 2 others are assigned to illuminate the burial chamber, while the head priest conducts a shadow alignment test. It's exactly as exciting as it sounds. He walks slowly, holding a crystal, chanting things like, "The shadow must kiss the lotus." You nod like this makes sense. Your job is to keep the torch steady. You're shaking. So is the torch. At one point, the priest shouts, "Who moves the flame disturbs the soul." You hold your breath for 20 minutes straight. Historians still argue over how precise tomb alignments were. Some believe every chamber was positioned to catch the exact light of a solstice sunrise. Others think workers just eyeballed it and prayed no one measured it later. You think both can be true. Finally, the alignment is approved. The priest exits with a flourish, and you're left behind to sweep up dust and recarve the line you chipped by mistake with your forehead. As the sun sets, you're led back outside. You pass a row of statues, unfinished kings, gods, guardians. One is missing a nose, another has 2 left feet. Art, you think, it's in the eye of the exhausted. And then finally, blessedly, it's over. You're done for the day. You limp to your mat. The fire is already glowing. Someone's playing a tune on a hollowed reed. Bakari is trying to trade his leftover bread for a foot massage. Kai is asleep with his hand still curled like he's holding a chisel. You lie down and feel every muscle release, every blister throb in quiet protest. You built something today. You carved something. You survived. Barely, but still. And as the stars blink into the sky, the pyramid stands tall behind you, etched, stacked, scraped, levelled, and cursed by your own 2 hands. They'll never know your name, but they'll see your work baked into history. And maybe, just maybe, someone will remember the guy who almost called the pharaoh a fart. The camp grows quiet. The fires dim. The last whispers fade into the breeze. You lie on your mat, the scent of sand and sweat softening under the night air. And for once, just once, your body begins to truly rest. Your hands, raw and heavy, fall still against your chest. Your feet twitch, remembering the slopes of the scaffold, the pulse of a chisel. Your breath, slow now, draws in the cool calm of the desert, no longer choked by dust or effort. Above you, the stars wheel overhead, familiar, ancient, indifferent. The pyramid is a silhouette now, sharp against the horizon. It doesn't glow, it doesn't sparkle, but it looms, strong, silent, enduring. Because of you, not just you. Of course, there were hundreds, thousands, but your stone, your mark, your sweat, it's in there, forever sealed under sun-baked blocks and chants for eternity. And as your eyes close, as your body finally yields to sleep, you drift no longer a slave, no longer a worker, just part of something old, something bigger. The laughter fades, the aches vanish, and the silence deepens. No whips, no sandstorms, no ducks that look like snakes, just the hush of ancient dreams wrapping around you like linen, gently, like a blessing. You made it through another day, and tomorrow, well, you'll still be alive. Sweet dreams.